Thank you, Manasa. Thank you, Lokesh, for the very gracious introduction. And a very happy 74th Independence Day to all of you. So it is also very heartening to see the bright students of India, as Lokesh rightly pointed out, from the lengths and breadths of our country, joining together for a noble cause. And you have aptly named your organization as KYRO, Know Your Rights Organization, and the abode of Dharma. So it's only fitting that young people like you are trying to step into society through your knowledge, whatever you have derived from your college, and trying to help the needy by offering your knowledge to them, so that by knowing their legal rights, everybody can start prospering in their own lives. This is phenomenal. We always see a huge gap between students who study in a campus and the society, the needs of the society. There is always that gap. So you are trying to bridge that gap right from the days you are studying in a campus, in a college campus. This is phenomenal. I haven't seen organizations like this in my lifetime, whatever in the last 20 years I haven't seen. And more than that, it's a very burning desire. Since I'm able to interact with some of the founder members of KYRO for some time, it's a very burning desire all of you have to somehow contribute to the needy people. And somehow the burning desire you have is knowledge, if offered at the right place at the right time, can create wonders to all those people. So what you have is knowledge, and there's many people don't have this knowledge, and you have a very specialized skill set of knowledge, and you're trying to offer this knowledge to the people who need it. So thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for collaborating with We the Leaders Foundation, and thank you so much for writing out all the policy papers, writing out all the small notes on legal issues in our country, so that we are able to take it to a wider audience. And like, since you quoted Gautam Buddha, and you have got your key note also as the abode of Dharma. So Dharma is a very complex word. Dharma is not upheld by just following the rule of law. The rule of law is just a codified version after Britishers left. So we codified most of it into a criminal, civil, and different practices. And we have different systems in process, like a judge or a court or a tribunal or an arbitration center. When two people go there, with the judges or the people who are sitting at the top of the hierarchy, they tried their best to render justice. But rendering justice doesn't mean rendering dharma. Both are very, very different. But many a time, rendering justice might come close to dharma. I'll give you a small example to expand it. Now, dharma, in its original word, means a sense of righteousness. If you look at all the different languages, which is closer to the word called dharma, Tamil language has got a word called aram. Aram, Thiruvalluvar talks about aram, and Tulkapiyam, and all the old Sangam literature, which are 2000 years old, use this word called aram. Now, what is aram? Now, when we go very closely to aram, aram expands or maybe goes beyond righteousness also. Righteousness, in a normal sense, is doing one's duty. Aram, if you go much deeper, it is not only doing one's own duty, it is also performing the expectation the society has on us. It is also performing our duty to our personal people like our husbands and wives and kids and parents, and also performing our duty to the society with whom we have benefited so much, and also performing our duty to people whom we haven't even met. Because the law of Dharma says that we should start giving to people whom we haven't even met, because our life got enriched by a lot of people whom we haven't met. By their virtuous action, all our life got enriched. So aram, in its complexity, it goes much beyond doing one's duty. It goes much beyond doing one's duty for a personal self. It goes much beyond doing one's duty to the people who are visible to us. So that is the complex word of aram. Avayar, the great poet, in her Atichudi, she starts her first Atichudi with Aram Sayya Virumbu. Please do your best to do Aram. So Dharma, in its total essence, is also like that. It goes much beyond that, what you're trying to do. You're trying to help all the visible people. You're trying to help all the invisible people. You're trying to help your own self. You're trying to help the people who matter to you, your personal people. You're trying to help the society that which you live in. So this sense is important. So many people don't have this sense. They believe helping is you do it in right hand and your left hand should know. Helping is to satisfy your personal ego. Helping is to satisfy your personal knowledge. And no, no. I always believe dharma or aram, whichever way you look at it, sense of righteousness, whichever way you look at it, it is helping without any expectation. You don't expect anything. If you look at the Mother Nature doesn't expect anything from you. So we are born billions of years back. Big Bang happened, and the Earth got created. And millions of years back, the life started forming in this planet Earth. And even now, we get air, we get sun, we get all sorts of things in this planet Earth. So the planet Earth doesn't expect anything from us. It just gives, with the hope that we will enrich the planet Earth in which we are living. So literally, I think we all should start this KYRO. We all should start contributing to this organization with the same motto, similar motto, that we will not expect anything from anybody. We will start doing our duty to yourself as a student. You will start doing your duty to the society. You will start doing your duty to the unfortunate people who need you now more than ever. If that is the spirit behind the KYRO organization, where the Dharma resides or the abode of Dharma is there, then possibly you'll be creating a lot of enlightened individuals in the society. And the society, if it has got more number of enlightened individuals, then that society has to prosper. No, nothing can stop that society from prospering. So that is my hope and wish for all the 140 people who have joined us in our Zoom call today, that you will go much beyond the textbook definition of Dharma. You will go much beyond what is your understanding of Dharma. You will go closer to what Gautam Buddha talked about Dharma. And you will go closer to what Thiruvalluvar spoke about Aram. And in your own parts of India, whichever region you must have come, I am sure there must be many great poets and great philosophers at different points of time in your history who must have mentioned about the similar things. Now, the part two, what should we do? Now, we the leaders of foundation, we have got a platform. We can reach people. So you as students have got knowledge. So it's only apt that both of us are combining. So I was talking the other day to the core founders who are interacting with me. Now in India, if you look at it, the biggest problem people have is the lack of knowledge. Knowledge is there, but it is not there at the right place so that people can access at the right time. There is always a gap. Most of the time we are forced to go to a Tahsildar office or to any other government office, even to access a simple government order, even to clarify what the government means. For a businessman, it could be to see what the government really means, what is the Bank Act and what is the subsidy scheme and what are the schemes that is available. If you look at our agriculture brothers, there are n number of things the government offers to them, but many people are not sure what is available to them. So this gap, this knowledge gap has to be bridged. Once you bridge the knowledge gap, the second comes the analysis part. And this could be about your sense of it, what you analyze from it. Is it good? Is it bad? Does the act need any improvement? That is the analysis part. And the third part that I believe is the fighting part, where you fight for a better society by pushing for reforms in the government sector, by pushing for new ways of doing business in the government sector. That is the third part. And many a times what happens, the mistake we make is we directly jump into the third part. We start fighting and we start agitating without even understanding that without a knowledge and without the analysis of knowledge people get in their brain, fighting and agitation doesn't take us anywhere. Fighting and agitation doesn't take us anywhere. So let us work towards spreading this knowledge to a wider society. This could be anything. This could be laws concerning woman and child. This could be rights concerning woman and child and a farmer and a businessman. This would be concerning do's and don'ts, so that people are not afraid of lawful authority. They know what exactly the lawful authority is, where does it stop and where does it start. So all of those things are very potential gold mines where you can really put out videos, put out teasers, put out Facebook posts, put out newsletters, so that more people read what it is. Then the second part is you can open up a center or you can open up an online portal where people can ask questions to you. This is the analysis as well as the interpretation part. They can ask, what is this? I'm a farmer, what is available? I am a guy who needs a criminal lawyer support, what is it? I'm a guy who needs a civil support, what is it? So different students, when you combine as volunteers, each of you can take questions by rotation. This is my suggestion, this is my kind suggestion. And people can step in and people can start answering that. So this takes care of the second part where we are looking at the analysis, the interpretation, and the help that is given to a common man. This itself will take some time. So in a democratic setup, yes, agitation is more important, no doubt about that. We got to fight with the government sometimes and get the job done. But I always believe if we can get the part 1 and part 2 done properly, many a times the government themselves will be forced to change before you put your hands on a part 3, that is the agitation part. So my sincere wishes and prayer is people who are part of the program with the same intensity and the same thought process today would continue to be champions of justice, would continue to be with the common man, would continue to speak truth to power, would continue to write things that a common man holds dear. So you can do this by writing, speaking, and all the different forum. And we, the leaders, is always with you to support you and to take all your vision further. Now, the third part of what I want to converse with you or discuss with you is about role models. Now, our society more than any time needs a lot of role models, and role models of people who will inspire a lot of people around them and push towards the path of Dharma. And instead of you walking alone, you will take thousands of people, hundreds of people along with you, and all of you walk together. So I hope and pray all 140 of you who are here today would act as eminent role models by your virtue, by your conduct, and you will start spreading that goodness around you. It is like an ink blot. Once you start spreading that goodness like ink stains here and there, so over a point of time, you will see all the ink stains will get connected, and you will see the blot of that color throughout the paper. So that is the only strategy to be followed. And KYRO, the abode of Dharma, will act as role models on all the students here from different eminent law colleges and some of the brilliant brains here. This is the way to go. This is my suggestion. And I look forward, and we look forward to our organization to actively collaborate with KYRO India and to take justice to a common man's doorstep. So together, let's do it. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's a privilege to talk to you. And more than that, it's a great thing you're doing. And we are very, very happy to join hands with you and walk the path of Dharma with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your unbridled support and those insightful and encouraging words, sir. We will strive to perform our Dharma to the society to the best of our capabilities. Thank you for articulating and guiding us in our objective by providing us with the 3-stage process that KYRO should pursue. Now, I request the founder of KYRO, Pascal Cecile, to provide an insight into the vision behind KYRO.
So, warm greetings and salutations of the day to the august gathering who are present here. It indeed fills me with immense pleasure to address you all, my dear brothers and sisters, on this auspicious occasion and day for us and for our country. Yes, it's the digital launch of KYRO India and a diverse nation's 174th Independence Day. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a small step, said Luo Tzu. And here we are on this day, looking forward to making that one small step towards an abode of Dharma. This being said, this small step of faith would not have been possible if it was not for the combined efforts and support of a large extended family, the KYRO India family, and We the Leaders Foundation. I think my friends who are to follow me in this process are in a better position to talk about what we stand for statistically and factually, and the work we are going to do in the states of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Delhi. So let me just talk about the humble story of how KYRO as an establishment came into existence. Nearly 8 months back, when we decided to go ahead with this idea of law as a means for social change, to be very honest, we were never thinking about the start, less talking about the greatest of starts. To bring like the first 10 like-minded members on board was a humongous monumental task, difficult to explain beyond words. Constant setbacks were something we experienced on a minute-to-minute basis, day-to-day basis. But we did trust the process. I think that was one thing that kept us going every single day. Days changed into months and we slowly started losing our hopes. Then there was this one day when one single phone call and one single eventful June morning indeed changed the rest of our lives and has brought us to this juncture. One of our co-founders told me about this former IPS officer who was doing a commendable job for working for what he was addressing as grassroots level change in the state of Tamil Nadu. One TED Talk of his on civil momentum was all that it took for me to realize what he stood for. And after frantic searches, we ended upon and landed upon his number, and we were looking. What at most we were looking for him was a few words of advice on how to go about things. And this is how the call transversed actually. My first words were undoubtedly "Hello, sir," which essentially translates, and the ever reassuring voice on the other side of the phone call said me, "Solunga, brother," which essentially means "Tell me, brother." That very moment shook me out of my block holes as I stood stunned at its simplicity. What followed henceforth was 2 minutes of stammering, explaining with lack of words, and after a brief pause, he was like, "Pannalam, brother, sendu pannalam." That is, let us do this, brother. Let us join hands and work for this. I think that moment will boil down as one that I will cherish for a lifetime and beyond. Yes, I had met this greatest mentor in my life, much like you read in the books. Annamalai, sir, words are not enough for me to thank you for everything that you have been to this organization as a chief mentor and to a chief mentor in my life to a great extent. The humble start that we have here is nothing without his kind words and support and the support of We the Leaders organization. Moving forward, Dr. Prabha, team coordinator of We the Leaders Foundation, a lifesaver by profession and a lifesaver by choice is one more line that will sum up him. Yes, a doctor by profession, he is one of the purest souls when it comes to social service and change in the society. I would like to take a moment on behalf of KYRO India to thank his contribution to KYRO as well. My dear friends, today on this day, we have taken our first step, a humble start in working towards a symbiosis of law, education, and social change from the grassroots of the states of Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and Delhi. The concept of Dharma, as Annamalai sir had to talk about, is the most divinest of all existing rules of life. The cessation of Dharma is essentially nothing but the breakdown of rule of law. The moment this transverses, everything else becomes out of place. The work we do while on the outset may contribute immensely to the student community which we have on board here. The largest success of our initiative will happen in grassroots level change and civil momentum through legal means, a dream vision of none other than our chief mentor, Annamalai sir. I do strongly believe that we as a unit, family, and team shall work towards the realization of the same to the best of our abilities and capabilities. Going by the words of Mother Teresa, we alone cannot change the world, but we can cast a stone across the water to create many ripples. Let us on this auspicious day take a vow to cast a stone towards the realization of an abode of Dharma in our very own surroundings. After all, change in the right sense and moving in the right direction is better than no change and no movement at all. Thank you, dear brothers and sisters, and my dear KYRO family for making it here. Let us all take a pledge on this day to work towards the realization of an abode of Dharma. Wishing you all a very happy Independence Day once again. Thank you all.
Thank you for that, Pascal. To explain the vision of KYRO in Tamil, I call upon Asir Annamalai, co-founder of KYRO India.
KYRO India சார்பாக அனைவருக்கும் எனது அன்பு வணக்கத்தினை தெரிவித்துக் கொள்கிறேன். KYRO இந்தியா இது முழுக்க மாணவர் நடத்தும் ஒரு லாப நோக்கமற்ற அமைப்பாக செயல்பட்டு கொண்டிருக்கிறது. இந்த அமைப்பின் முதன்மை பணிகள் தமிழ்நாடு, கர்நாடகா மற்றும் டெல்லி மாநிலங்களை அடிப்படையாக கொண்டதாக இருக்கும். இந்த அமைப்பு இந்தியா முழுவதிலும் உள்ள சமூக மற்றும் சட்டம் ஆர்வம் கொண்ட இந்தியா முழுவதும் உள்ள மாணவர்களால் நிறுவப்பட்டுள்ளது மற்றும் ஆயிரக்கணக்காரோடு குறுகிய காலத்தில் வளர்ச்சியை கண்ட அரசு சாரா அமைப்பான வி தி லீடர்ஸ் ஃபவுண்டேஷனுடன் நிரந்தர ஒத்துழைப்பை பெற்றுள்ளது. எங்கள் அமைப்பின் சில குறிக்கோள்களை நான் கூற விரும்புகிறேன். பொது மக்களுக்கு விழிப்புணர்வு பரப்புதல், சமூகத்தில் புறக்கணிக்கப்பட்டவர்கள் மற்றும் அன்றாட வாழ்க்கையில் சம்பந்தப்பட்ட குறைவான அறியப்பட்ட திட்டங்கள், விதிகள் மற்றும் சட்டப்பூர்வமானவை குறித்து அறிவித்தல், மக்கள் தங்கள் அடிப்படை உரிமைகளை முழுமையாக அறிந்து ஒரு சமுதாயத்தை உருவாக்குதல், அரசு மற்றும் பாமர மக்களிடையே ஒரு பாலமாக செயல்படுவது, வி தி லீடர்ஸ் ஃபவுண்டேஷனுடன் இணைந்து பகுத்தாய்வு தாக்கங்கள் மற்றும் ஆராய்ச்சி அறிக்கைகள் வெளியிடுதல், வி தி லீடர்ஸ் அறக்கட்டளையின் உதவியுடன் தமிழ்நாடு மற்றும் கர்நாடகாவில் மாநிலங்களில் சட்ட உதவி மற்றும் விழிப்புணர்வு முகாம்கள் நடத்துதல், வி தி லீடர்ஸ் அறக்கட்டளையின் அனைத்து திட்டங்கள், முன்முயற்சிகள் மற்றும் நடவடிக்கைகளுக்கு ஆதரவு அளித்தல், மேலும் பொது நல வழக்குகள் உயர் நீதிமன்றம் மற்றும் உச்ச நீதிமன்றத்தில் வழக்கு தொடர்வது. இது தொடர்பாக KYRO இந்தியா ஒரு வழக்கறிஞர்கள் அணியையும் ஏற்படுத்தியுள்ளது. வி தி லீடர்ஸ் அமைப்புடன் நாங்கள் இணைவதே எங்களுக்கு மிக்க மகிழ்ச்சி அளிக்கிறது. வி தி லீடர்ஸ் ஃபவுண்டேஷன் ஒரு ஆரோக்கியமான ஒரு சமுதாயத்தை இந்த மண்ணில் ஏற்படுத்த வேண்டும் என்பதற்காக ஆரம்பிக்கப்பட்ட ஒரு இயக்கமாகும். இந்த இயக்கத்தில் பல்வேறு கணக்கான மாணவர்கள், இளைஞர்கள் இருக்கிறார்கள், பல்லாயிரக்கணக்கான மாணவர்கள் இருக்கிறார்கள். கரண்டா இவங்க வந்து கரூர் மாவட்டத்தில் கூட விவசாயிகள் மற்றும் மாணவர்களிடையே பயிற்சி அளித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். விவசாயத்தை எப்படி லாபகரமாக மாற்றுவது, விவசாயிகளுக்கு ஒரு நேரடியாக சந்தைக்கு கொண்டு வந்து விற்கிற மாதிரி ஒரு சந்தையை ஏற்படுத்துவது போன்றவைகளை செய்து கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். மாணவர்களுக்கு பயிற்சி அளித்துக் கொண்டிருக்கிறார்கள். இது மட்டுமல்லாமல் எங்களது தலைமை ஆலோசகர் திரு அண்ணாமலை அவர்களை பற்றி கூற வேண்டுமானால், சிறந்த ஒரு நாட்டை நேசிக்கக்கூடியவர், மக்கள் நன்மதிப்பை பெற்றவர், பல சாதனைகளை நிகழ்த்தியுள்ளவர். அவருடைய சாதனைகளுக்கு அளவே இல்லை. அவர் வாங்கின விருதுகள் பல. அதில் சிலவற்றை நான் கூற ஆசைப்படுகிறேன். 2013ஆம் ஆண்டு இளம் சாதனையாளர் விருதை பிஎஸ்ஜி கல்லூரியில் பெற்றார். IPS பயிற்சியின் போது துணை குடியரசுத் தலைவர் விருதை பெற்றார். சிறந்த போலீஸ் அதிகாரி விருதையும் அவர் பெற்றார். முன்னாள் ஜனாதிபதி பிரணாப் முகர்ஜியின் முன் ஜனாதிபதி மாளிகையில் 40 நிமிடங்கள் உரையாற்றி தமிழ் மக்களின் பெருமைகளை சேர்த்தார். அது மட்டுமல்லாமல் அவர் கர்நாடகா மாநிலத்தில் 9.5 ஆண்டுகள் பணியாற்றிய போது பல மாற்றங்களை அவர் செய்தார். கர்நாடக மக்கள் இவரை அன்புடன் சிங்கம் அண்ணாமலை என்று அழைப்பார்கள். எளிய மக்களின் நன்மதிப்பை பெற்றவராய் இருந்தார். பணியில் இருந்த போது சாமானிய மக்கள் புகார் சில நிமிடங்களில் FIR போட வைப்பது, காவலர்கள் மன அழுத்தத்தை குறைக்க நடவடிக்கை எடுத்தது, நக்சலைட்டை சரணடைய வைத்தது, ISO தகுதி சான்று பெற்ற காவல் நிலையங்களை உருவாக்குவது போன்ற பல்வேறு மாற்றங்களை கர்நாடகா மாநிலத்தில் செய்துள்ளார். தற்பொழுதும் கூட தனது பணியிலிருந்து விருப்ப ஓய்வு பெற்று தமிழகத்தில் மாற்றம் கொண்டு வர வேண்டும், ஒரு சமுதாயத்தில் ஒரு மாற்றம் கொண்டு வர வேண்டும் என்று கூறி மாணவர்களிடையே, இளைஞர்களிடையே வேலை செய்து கொண்டிருக்கிறார். இந்த மண்ணை மாற்ற நீங்கள் காணும் கனவுகள் நிஜமாகட்டும், உங்கள் நல்ல நோக்கம் நிறைவேற்றும் என்று கூறி வாழ்த்தி விடைபெறுகிறேன். நன்றி, வணக்கம்.
Thank you, Asif. To explain the vision of KYRO in Kannada, I call upon Sindhu, founder of KYRO India.
ಎಲ್ಲರಿಗೂ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ಮೊದಲನೇದಾಗಿ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ದಿನಾಚರಣೆಯ ಹಾರ್ದಿಕ ಶುಭಾಶಯಗಳು. ಅದರ ಕಡೆ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವ ಒಂದು ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳ ಸಮ್ಮುಖದಲ್ಲಿ ಪಡಿಸಿರುವ ಒಂದು ನಾನ್ ಪ್ರಾಫಿಟ್ ಆರ್ಗನೈಸೇಷನ್ ನಮ್ಮಲ್ಲಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳು ಅನೇಕ ಅಧ್ಯಯನಗಳಿಂದ ಹಾಗೂ ದೇಶದ ಅನೇಕ ರಾಜ್ಯಗಳಿಂದ ಬಂದಿರುವ ವಿದ್ಯಾರ್ಥಿಗಳಾಗುತ್ತಾರೆ. ನಾವು ಮಾಜಿ IPS ಅಧಿಕಾರಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಕೆ ಅಣ್ಣಾಮಲೈ ಸರ್ ಸ್ಥಾಪಿಸಿರುವ ವಿ ದ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಕೈ ಜೋಡಿಸಿದ್ದೇವೆ. ಅವರು ನಮ್ಮ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಮಾರ್ಗದರ್ಶಕರಾಗಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಅವರ ಬೆಂಬಲಿಕೆಗೆ ನಾವು ಯಾವಾಗಲೂ ಕೋಟಿ ಧನ್ಯರು. ಈಗ ಮುಂದೆ ನಮ್ಮ ಕೈರೋ ಇಂಡಿಯಾದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಮಾಜದ ಎಲ್ಲಾ ವರ್ಗದ ಜನರ ತನಕ ಅವರ ಹಕ್ಕುಗಳು, ಅಂದರೆ ಕಾನೂನು ಅವರಿಗೆ ನೀಡಿರುವ ಹಕ್ಕುಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸುವುದು ನಮ್ಮ ದೃಷ್ಟಿ. ಇದರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಈ ಹಕ್ಕುಗಳನ್ನು ಪಡೆದುಕೊಳ್ಳಕ್ಕೆ ಇರುವ ಮಾದರಿ ಮತ್ತು ಅದರಲ್ಲಿ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಸಹಾಯ ನೀಡಲು ನಿರ್ಮಿಸಲಾಗಿರುವ ಕಾರ್ಯವಿಧಾನಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸುವುದು ನಮ್ಮ ಉದ್ದೇಶ. ಈಗ ಮುಂದಿನ 2-3 ನಿಮಿಷಗಳಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಗುರಿಗಳೇನು ಎನ್ನುವುದನ್ನು ನಾನು ವಿವರಿಸ್ತೇನೆ. ಮೊದಲನೆಯದಾಗಿ ಕಮ್ಮಿ ಪರಿಚಯ ಇರುವ ಯೋಜನೆಗಳ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕರಿಗೆ ತಿಳಿಸುವುದು. ಎರಡನೆಯದಾಗಿ ಸರ್ಕಾರ ಹಾಗೂ ಜನರ ಮಧ್ಯ ಒಂದು ಸೇತುವೆಯಾಗಿ ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡುವುದು. ಮೂರನೆಯದಾಗಿ ವಿ ದ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಅವರ ಜೊತೆಗೆ ಸಂಶೋಧನೆ ವರದಿಗಳು, ಅಂದರೆ ರಿಸರ್ಚ್ ರಿಪೋರ್ಟ್ಸ್ ಅನ್ನು ಪಬ್ಲಿಷ್ ಮಾಡುವುದು. ನಾಲ್ಕನೆಯದಾಗಿ ನಾಗರಿಕರಿಗೆ ತಮ್ಮ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕ ಹಾಗೂ ಕಾನೂನು ಸಂಬಂಧಿತ ಅಸಮಾಧಾನಗಳು ಮತ್ತು ದೂರುಗಳನ್ನು ನಮ್ಮ ಬಳಿ ತರಲು ಒಂದು ಕಂಪ್ಲೇಂಟ್ ಪೋರ್ಟಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ಸ್ಥಾಪಿಸಿ ನಿರ್ಮಿಸುವುದು. ಐದನೆಯದಾಗಿ ವಿ ದ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಅವರ ಸಹಾಯದ ಜೊತೆ ಕರ್ನಾಟಕ ಹಾಗೂ ತಮಿಳುನಾಡಿನಲ್ಲಿ ಲೀಗಲ್ ಏಡ್ ಮತ್ತು ಲೀಗಲ್ ಅವೇರ್ನೆಸ್ ಕ್ಯಾಂಪ್, ಅಂದರೆ ಜನರಿಗೆ ಕಾನೂನಿನ ಅರಿವು ಹಾಗೂ ಸಹಾಯ ನೀಡಲು ಕ್ಯಾಂಪ್ಗಳನ್ನು ನಿರ್ಮಿಸುವುದು. ಕೊನೆಯದಾಗಿ ವಿ ದ ಲೀಡರ್ಸ್ ಫೌಂಡೇಶನ್ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಆಸರೆಯಾಗಿ ನಿಲ್ಲುವುದು ನಮ್ಮ ಗುರಿ. ಧನ್ಯವಾದಗಳು. ಶುಭವಾಗಲಿ.
Thank you for that, Sindhu. With that, we have come to the culmination of the digital launch of KYRO. I request Vishnu, co-founder of KYRO India, to deliver the formal vote of thanks.
Thank you, Manasa. To begin with, I would like to wish each and every participant here a happy Independence Day. This marks India's 74th year of independence, which I think is a very proud moment indeed. It gives me immense pleasure to propose the vote of thanks at this August gathering. CAIRO India is the culmination of the hard work of the passionate working committee of 6 months. Kudos to them. To begin with, I would like to start off by expressing my sincerest gratitude towards our keynote speaker, former IPS officer and chief servant of We the Leaders Foundation, Mr. K. Annamalai, for working out the dynamics behind this collaboration and providing the right thrust and firepower which this organization needed. Sir, we are extremely grateful to you. Further, I would also like to thank him for his extremely insightful speech, which I'm sure has influenced and actuated all our participants. On this note, I think it's imperative that all our participants understand that harnessing civil momentum through legal means is extremely essential. By legal means, we are talking about the redressal mechanism. Litigation and public interest litigation is an extremely important aspect in this regard, which I'm sure CAIRO India will take up in the coming days. I would also like to thank Dr. Prabha, team coordinator for We the Leaders Foundation, for being a constant pillar of support. On behalf of CAIRO India, I take this opportunity to express my sincerest gratitude to all the esteemed individuals who have expressed their support through felicitation statements. They are, namely, Honorable Justice Shyamal Kumar Sen, formerly Governor of West Bengal and Chief Justice of Allahabad High Court. Honorable Justice Ashish Kumar Chakraborty, Sitting Judge of High Court of Calcutta. Mr. S.J. John Kennedy, Assistant Commissioner of Police, Chennai Police Headquarters. Sri Bishwan Chakraborty, Joint Secretary, Government of West Bengal. Dr. C. Shailendra Babu, IPS, Director General of Police, Tamil Nadu. Mr. A.M. Ravi, Additional Chief Metropolitan Magistrate, Egmore, Chennai. Justice N. Kannadasan, former Judge, High Court of Madras. Mr. Sakya Sen, Advocate, High Court of Calcutta. Mr. M. Honorable Justice M. Balamurugan, Subordinate Judge and Chairman, Taluk Legal Service Authority. Sri B.J. Queensley Jayanti, Secretary, Jayaraj Anna Pakman College for Women. And also a special thanks to Gauri Ji Kishan, the South Indian actress who gave a big shout out for us on Instagram. Also a special thanks to Mr. Israel Jeba Singh, former IAS officer and director of Officers IAS Academy, who sent the felicitation video. Sir, we are extremely grateful to you. I would also like to thank the MP, the Rajya Sabha MP from Haryana, Mr. Romesh Thapar, for expressing his gratitude. I would also like to extend a warm and a big thanks to our media team who have worked relentlessly and tirelessly to make this event a reality. I would also like to thank each and every participant for being here today. In spite of their commitments, we thank you. You've made the event wholesome. Lastly, I would like to thank our anchor for the day, Manasa, and Sindhu and Abhishek for extending our goals and objectives in Kannada and Tamil respectively. Last but not the least, I thank each and every individual who has made this event a reality. With this in mind, I'm sure that every participant and all the members of CAIRO are extremely motivated. Let's work towards bringing a change in the society. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Vishnu. With that, the official digital launch of Know Your Rights Organization India comes to an end. CAIRO seeks to bridge the knowledge gap, as Annamalai sir rightly said. With students from across the country, the organization seeks to bring about grassroots level change in partnership with We the Leaders Foundation. The floor is now open for questions, and I request all the members or the press to ask questions to the founding members. I request Annamalai sir to explain about civil rights and civil momentum, as the members are eager to listen to it now.
Thank you. Sorry, I was muted, so I couldn't speak. I think the word civil momentum, it came from one of the TEDx talk I gave last year, where I mentioned about a small crime that we see in the society. If a common man is able to question it, is able to ask, at least stop there and say, why are you doing this? Then it will prevent the occurrence of larger crimes. So it's a TEDx video for about 15 minutes I spoke. Perhaps the KYRO founders have taken the word from that. Civil momentum is needed because in a democracy, the most important ingredient of a democracy is the civil society. But somehow the civil society is busy with its own life, and it has given all its powers and responsibilities to the government and expects governments to run everything. That ideally is not the case, because the government by its very nature is ineffective, by its very nature is inefficient. So there should be a time when educated and empowered people like you should take back some of the space you have ceded to the government. Meaning, you can directly work with people like what KYRO is doing now. So as a civil society, when you start working with problems that you see in the society per se, you generate a momentum of its own. This momentum will push the government also to be effective. This is what I meant by civil momentum. Meaning you put your hands, you get your hands dirty, and you speak out, you write about it, and you question about it through what you mentioned about PIL, or you mentioned about a simple speech that you give, a powerful speech which might inspire people to do a change. So the civil momentum is that civil society doing its job, thereby creating a momentum. This momentum would transform the society on its own.
So there's another question. What made you want to partner with KYRO, a new organization, rather than partnering with other already established organizations?
It's a very simple answer. One, the passion that the founders had, and more importantly, the youth power that you have that can't be replicated anywhere. So the momentum that you bring, the energy that you bring, and more than that, the passion that you bring to the table. It's a very young organization. Every organization has to grow, has to find its roots. It's okay, it will take some time, 6 months to 1 year. You got to be patient with all of the organization. But nobody can match the youth's energy and the passion you bring. So it's a blessing for us. More than you partnering with us, we are very privileged that KYRO is partnering with us. I'll put it that way. And just look at it. All of your students, you have a busy life, and some of you might be practicing also. But still, you take out for this organization, give your time to it, and all of this is towards a cause that is nobler. So what more privilege can we, the leaders, have than taking all of you along with us in the path of
Dharma. Hello, sir. Sir, I had a question for you. Now, you've been an IPS officer, sir, which is equivalent to public service. But I wanted to know how different is the public service from IPS and the public service which we plan on undertaking. Can you please explain the rationale and nexus behind your decision to quit that and join here? Simple.
I'll do that, Vishnu. Now,
yes,
if
sir.
you see, a public servant, by the virtue of their position, is supposed to implement the rules, procedures, and the regulations, whatever the government is saying. I'll give you a small anecdote so that you can connect what I'm speaking. So there was a woman in my office once who was complaining that her husband is beating her. And I told my inspector to get the husband to the police station, warn him, and make sure he doesn't beat the woman again. So accordingly, that person was called to the police station. He was suitably warned. And they went back to their house together. So after 10 days, the woman was again in my office telling me that her husband is again beating her. This time I was a bit angry as well. So I told my inspector to bring the husband to me. This happened in Bangalore when I was a DCP. So the husband was brought. I asked that guy, why are you beating this woman? Don't you know it is wrong to beat this woman? Now, if I look at this problem like a policeman, what I can do is I can file an FIR, arrest this guy and send him to jail. But if I look at this problem holistically, if I send him to jail, I'm going to cause huge amount of problem for the woman because the husband is the sole breadwinner for the woman. So I'm not saying this is a police problem. And second, when I ask the husband, why are you beating your wife? And his answer is, sir, I work for a cab company, a cell phone, a lot of private companies, you order a cab. So he's a driver for one of that cab. He says, sir, I work for about 15, 16 hours every day. And when I go home, my shoulder pains a lot because I'm always catching that steering and driving in the Bangalore traffic. I take that half liquor bottle, half quarter bottle, I drink and go. When I go home, my wife shouts at me and then I lose my temper and beat my wife. Now, the problem of beating is transformed to a problem of drinking now. You see how the shift has happened. Now, when you get into the problem of drinking, why is he drinking? He's drinking for two reasons. One, he is hardworking and the society is not paying him the way it pays the other people. So 16 hours, he earns about 1,200, 1,300. So he gets tired and maybe to get the energy for the next day, mistakenly he thinks drinking is one. Second, the government promotes drinking. When you have states like Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, which takes a lot of their revenue from their liquor shop. Tamil Nadu has got a government shop called Tasmak, and Karnataka has got private bars which encourages people to drink. 30,000 crore, 31,000 crore. Tamil Nadu last year is 31,000 crore. At one end, the government encourages people to drink. At other hand, we are seeing a manifestation of that problem in terms of a beating. Now, I can very well sit in my police role and arrest that person and keep sending him to jail. But I don't think I'm doing the Dharma. So we are again coming back to the core word of Dharma. So now, to be in the dharmic path, I enjoyed my policing tenure. It's a fantastic opportunity to serve and no doubt about it. Now I felt, can we shift to one level this side? Can we solve social problems? And that some of the social problems can be solved only through policy intervention. You start changing a lot of policies, then you start maneuvering the society to go in a particular way. When the society is going in a particular way, many of its manifested problems which occurs as crime can be solved. So this is the long answer. So I felt 10 years of government with all its exposure and experience, I should go one level backwards and start working. Now applying this to KYRO, what do you think you can do? Many a times you should push government also to change its policy. Now you as a student, as a lawyer can connect the evil effects of drinking to the manifestation of crime, to the economic loss drinking entails. The government looks only at the profit drinking generates, but drinking also creates huge economic and social loss. When you are able to combine everything, so you are getting into an agitational mode. You're getting into an agitational mode of telling the government to change its policy, or a simple PIL for a police reforms. If you look at police, the hardworking people out on the road, people like you can get the judiciary or get the government to do a lot of reforms for the police. Why should people work 15 hours in police department? Is it really right? I don't know. And people live in very, very, very poor conditions. And is it right? People deserve to live in good accommodation. As a society, it is our duty to take care. And here you step in by writing your research papers, writing your policy papers, doing that very hard work of connecting the data points to the policy and making the government to see what a policy should be. And third is, a lot of policies are there which people don't know. If you look at a crime against women or crime against children, or the SC/ST Act itself, the Scheduled Caste and Scheduled Tribe Act itself, it talks about a lot of material economic benefits a certain community gets. And you can take it to the wider world, and a policeman might not tell people what they get it. So I think it's a huge scope. Government is part, it's just a small dot in the whole ocean of society. I think working in the government has given me this kind of clarity that we can go much beyond a government role and start doing a lot of other things by which society can benefit. Hope I made sense to your question.
Yes, of course, sir. I think the underlying nexus is, if you tackle it individually, you would be only helping them. But if you tackle domestic violence as a whole, then you would be able to bring out an effective change to the entire society. I get it, sir. I mean, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
So there's another question. How do we as students can bring change? As most of us are inexperienced or too young, is there a need for governments to be student friendly?
I think governments are student friendly, but sometimes when we see it, it doesn't appear to be student friendly. In this age and time, when Mark Zuckerberg starts Facebook at 21, at 30 is the youngest billionaire in the world, and when all the world is getting younger, if you look at the median age of India, is around 35, and people below the age of 20 itself is about 50% of the population below 30. So the whole country is becoming younger, no doubt. So in this age and time, you need not look up to government. Government can do what it thinks is right and what it is capable of doing. So I don't think you are young and inexperienced. By virtue of you able to pass a competitive exam, get into the finest colleges in India, study law at this age, itself shows that you are much ahead of a common man, much ahead of a common man. So if instead of thinking like that, if you can shift your thinking as the society has given me so much, and I'm getting some of the best, finest education now. Can I do something for the society? Yes, mistakes will happen. Being young and being naive is like edge of the same sword. One edge is very sharp, which is you make mistakes because you are young. The other edge, you are fearless because you're not allowing society to condition you. Only if society conditions you, there is a problem. Since society doesn't condition you, I see you as a sword with two sharp edges. So the wisdom is in deciding to use which edge at what point of time. And don't be afraid of making mistakes. Mistakes are okay in your life journey. Mistakes make you better. Small things you make here and there, it's okay. So, but the important thing is don't make the same mistake twice. So I see it as a blessing for you, that being young is a blessing. So don't take it otherwise.
Sir, another question. Now, the recent trend is expression of dissent through riots and destruction of public property. We can see the recent example of Bangalore. Wherever there is dissent, people are resorting towards techniques like riots. What are your views on it, sir? Do you think that expression of dissent, it's of course essential in democracy, but how far can we go? Is it at the cost of damage to public property and disturbance towards normal public life? How would you see it?
Of course, disturbance of a public property is no, definitely no. And dissent is a very vital part of democracy. You can dissent, but democracy itself gives you space to dissent. It mentions you the ways to dissent. And many courts judgment is also very clear. Any public property that gets damaged has to be paid by the person who's damaging it. So I think what happened in Bangalore is very shameful. What happened a few days back, burning the police station, assaulting the policeman, burning the bikes, and damaging the common civilians' property, and burning an MLA's house. This is not the way a city like Bangalore behaves. A city like Bangalore is much ahead when compared to other cities. A lot of educated people. Bangalore has got a culture of its own. And what happened is very shameful. I hope and pray that for people who decide to take law into their own hands by claiming that as a dissent, the next action by the police, not in terms of beating or something, next action in terms of police, implementing the laws of the land by making the protester to pay for whatever they have damaged, and making sure the tight noose of the law doesn't escape them, so they all get punished for what they did. I think that is one way of teaching people off and on when they forget it, also to tell them that everything has got a limit in this democracy. Article 19, it gives you the freedom of speech and expression, but the same article, same fundamental right also restricts what you can speak and what you can't speak. So many a time we only see our right, we don't see it as duty. So rights and duty are the two sides of the same coin. And I hope and pray at least young people like you, young people like me, and a lot of other people in society, we speak vociferously against it. When things like this happen, we make our minds known to the wider public. It's not only the politicians who come and speak their political language for their own benefit, but a common man like you and me also stand up and say, this is not done, boss. This is not the way you do it, because you are disturbing the life of a common man. This society is as important to you, as important to me. And that culture has to kick in.
Thank you, sir.
There's another question, sir. Sir, it is often observed that the people who commit crimes are already convicted persons. How can an organization like ours help them to return to the world of crime?
In my book, I've mentioned about it. If you look at the repeat offenders, people who commit a crime, they come out of jail and again they do a crime. Repeat offenders is a significant percentage of the grave crimes, the major bodily crimes and the grave crimes they do. Repeat offenders are very high. Now, I think KYRO also can look at getting into the system of correctional administration, the jails and all those stuff we have. it has got a very large moral duty to correct the minds of people who have done a crime, so that when they come out, they go in the path of righteousness. So CAIRO also has to get into prison reforms. CAIRO also has to get into policy suggestions for keeping our prisons in a better way, and that is very important. So there are a lot of committees which talks about High Court committees, Supreme Court committees, which talks about prison reforms. Sadly, it is not happening the way it has to happen. So prisons have become incubators of crime. I generally call prisons as universities of crime, where a person go to a prison, he learns from a bigger criminal how to do a crime, how to escape the police. He comes out and he becomes a bigger criminal. That is why if you see the juvenile criminals, the biggest worry is most of the juvenile criminals don't seem to get reformed. That's a problem. And juvenile criminals, they graduate to become bigger criminals, because juvenile criminal centers are run very poorly. Very, very poorly, and some of the government also doesn't put its head there, doesn't put a lot of money there. I think India has to really look at it. The system of correctional administration has to undergo a fundamental change, and we have to sit down and remove all the nuts and bolts of a prison administration, again redo it, and bring in the concept of reformation rather than punishment. The whole system is about punishment now, and if you don't bring reformation inside, I don't see a way out for criminals to get hardened. So I think CAIRO has got a huge scope to work in that area.
Good afternoon, sir. Nowadays, legislative, executive, and judiciary, all the three benches have become executive. How to overcome this unpleasant situation, and how can we contribute to bring the change from our NGO?
Oh, it's a very, very tough question, very dicey question, and with courts going after Prashant Bhushanji, I also have to be very careful now with what I speak. Now, what is happening is, the Constitution gives space to all the three wings of a government, the legislature, executive, and the judiciary. It's a very, very fine line. And of course, the media is also there as a fourth pillar. Now, what happens is, the government of a day functions within its own limitation, because the government truly represents the will of the people. People vote for it. And we are not saying whether the government is good or bad. Government ideally represents the will of the people, because the people decide who their MLAs and MPs are. But the problem is, since the MLAs and MPs don't represent the people in a proper spirit, and the politics have become rotten there, and many of the laws and regulations they bring in a parliament, or they bring in a legislative assembly, doesn't actually reflect the will of people. There is this gap. People vote and select a leader, but the leader don't remain faithful to their constituents. So now what happens? It forces the judiciary to step in. Now judiciary steps in and gets into a lot of administrative areas also, by advising the government what to do and what not to do. I think the simple best way to reform this is to reform the political process, make sure criminals don't get into the political process, and courts have done its best, and courts can still do more, and election commissions can still do much more. When you keep that democratic spirit from not getting damaged by the wrong people who enter into the democratic process, I think politics will largely start reflecting the will of the people. When it starts reflecting the will of the people, there is no question of other branches of the government stepping into an administrative role. But many of the times when we see a court doing its administrative role, and common man actually welcomes it, and common man somehow believes, and the government feels the court is stepping in. But courts cannot keep stepping in, because it might take away the will of the people. It might take away the original spirit of the democracy. So courts can judge, can see whether things are right, whether it's all constitutionally mandated, whether anything is violating anything. That's fine. But it's all happening because the political process has become rotten.
Thank you, sir. This is from Sindhu, our founding member. Sir, as a founding member of CAIRO, I feel immense gratitude in being part of this initiative. And my question to you is, can you provide us, the members of CAIRO, with insights on what it takes to run an NGO, and what is the responsibility that we have taken up?
What it takes to run an NGO, the number one is you got to have a very clear vision, very, very clear vision what you want to do. And second, a direction about how you want to do it. So these two things are very important. And second, an NGO can be run only by collaboration. It cannot be run by one person. It cannot be run by 2%. It has to be run with a lot of collaboration. And all the persons should have the same energy level. The initial founding team, it acquires a lot of importance, because they are the people who set the process, who set the pathway to that NGO. If NGO can do well, It all depends upon the initial team which is willing to put its time and energy to it. And over a point of time, the NGO also has to adapt, because how you started, you might not progress in the same path because things change, governments change, new rules come in, new procedures kick in. You will always find a better way of doing the same thing. So what happened? You should be able to adapt. You should not remain stagnant and say this is the way it is. Dinosaurs did not adapt, so they died. Cockroaches adapted, so they are alive. So that's a simple animal example we can take from the animal kingdom. So you got to keep adapting, and once in a while, at least in the first 6 months, make sure you have a clear-cut vision, you have a clear-cut direction, and you are very clear about the path, and make it a collaborative effort. And when the time is right, be ready to adapt also. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Sir, we want to disseminate knowledge. We want to reach out to the far ends of society, but we lack the resources and we are inexperienced as well. What would be your advice to create change and create awareness with the limited but motivated strength that we have?
I think forget about resource. Your time and your energy and your passion that you give is the main resource that you have. I think maybe the questioner is asking in terms of monetary resource. Monetary resource, we need not worry. It might come at any point of time. So people will pitch in and people will contribute. Now many companies are looking at good NGOs to support and support their vision. Now, as I mentioned, you should have a vision, direction. The initial founding team should be good, and you should be passionate and willing to adapt. So all these things are very important traits for an NGO to prosper. Once you get this right, I think other resources like the monetary ones will come in. So it's a matter of time. So, and keep your organization lean as well, and keep it an organization which doesn't eat money. An organization shouldn't eat money itself. If you look at the major NGOs, the administrative cost itself is about 30 to 35%. If 30 to 35% of the money goes in running an NGO, and only 60% goes outside for the people, and many people will think twice before contributing to an NGO. Keep it very agile and keep it very small in terms of the money that you spend on the NGO, so that all the money you get inside the NGO as a contribution, you get the maximum bang for the buck.
So this is the last question before we move on to the question. So good afternoon, sir. My question is directed towards the vernacular difference. There is a major obstacle, I believe, in organizations such as KYRO face. We usually write, interact, our entire education system bases itself around English. How important do you think is language-specific information, presentation, and awareness creation?
Can I take this as the last question? Will that be okay?
Yes, sir. This is the last question.
Okay, if you look at the new education policy 2020, and I'm a big supporter of NEP because two things happens. One, till class 5, it is expected that everybody studies in their mother tongue. And after class 5, we are going for the 3-language formula. And the only condition is 2 out of 3 should be a native language. It could be anything. For example, me being a Tamilian, I can take Tamil, Kannada, Malayalam, Hindi, whatever it is. Maybe a person who's in the northern part of India can take any 3 language, provided 2 should be native to it. You can take one foreign language as well. So the next generation has to understand more languages we know. It is great for us. So I speak about 5 languages now. So I believe that's the reason I'm able to interact with you, interact with somebody in Karnataka, interact with somebody in Tamil Nadu, somebody in Kerala, somebody in the northern part of India with different languages. So this, because I was forced to learn it. My job forced me to learn 2 languages, 3 languages from what I previously knew 2. So I think time is right when young people like you should also start picking up languages. So the language chauvinism has to end. And many politicians have thrived only on language chauvinism, meaning that my language is for my own people. I will not learn some other language. Some other person should not learn my language. That is, I believe, is total stupidity. Now, this is an interconnected India, and this India doesn't see boundaries, especially young people like you don't see boundaries. You don't care who's a Tamilian or Karnataka or Haryanvi or you don't simply care. You only care about the goodness of people and what you can do by collaborating. This KYRO itself is a great example of people collaborating from Delhi to Tamil Nadu with a common language of English, and one speaking Hindi, one speaking Tamil. And I look forward to a day when young people like you should be in a position to speak multiple languages. So national policy on education is a step in the right direction, and which emphasizes mother tongue for the initial learning, and maybe you can extend mother tongue also after a point of time, but compulsorily 3 languages. So That is the only way. So not learning and not knowing a language is a big handicap in this country. So if you have to connect with people, people will connect with you only if you can speak their mother tongue. We go and speak in some artificial language. If that is not their mother's tongue and their way of thinking, people just don't connect with us. I think it's a waste of time when we speak to them in an artificial language.
Thank you, sir. With that, the floor is now open to questions from the press.